Some days ago, I was online and I saw something pretty cool. It's basically this chart that indicates the main types of procrastination. I identified with one so strongly, and I thought I have to seize this opportunity and make a video on it only because it makes a lot of sense and it's stuff that I can explain myself, but it's nice when it is structured in a way that compares a different way you can run into this challenge. And basically, it looked like this: 6 types of procrastination. And basically, it enumerates them and then it gives a description on how it matches the type of procrastination, what are the behaviors that reflect it, and then what you can do to address it. So, number 1 is the perfectionist. You avoid starting tasks because you're worried it won't be perfect. As a solution, it proposes that you aim for good enough instead of perfect. Break the task into small chunks and celebrate finishing each one. It's basically divide and conquer. This one I can say I identify with the most. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that off the bat. I am the perfectionist. I have had those tendencies since forever, and when I think about it, the kind of upbringing I had, it gave no chance for me to come out any other way. So much so that at my job, I once had a manager, one of the most influential managers I had. When we were doing a performance review for me, she said, "You have a tendency of doing such a good job. Every job that you do is so good that it is too good because it is perfect. But that perfection has a cost, and that is you may worry too much about it, and it'll also be very time consuming. Because the good thing is that no detail escapes you, but the problem is that you're spending too much time on details that maybe we don't care about because it's not really important for the business. It's nice that you have those tendencies of paying attention to detail and pointing it out to management to help us with addressing some things, but that cannot be your everyday. Make your everyday more of a good enough type of thing." And when she said that, I told her immediately, I just can't do that because I feel like I'm becoming a slacker. And there was nothing more unacceptable, disrespectful, borderline, I will be condemned to death for this than being a slacker, doing a bad job, or delivering something less than perfect. And if not perfect, excellent. And if not excellent, fucking impressive. Better than anyone else present. That really was the standard I was held to. But after she said that, I want to say she was the first person I ever interacted with, especially as an adult, who helped me have a seed planted on me to understand that is an issue I have. Also to make me aware that I'm too hard on myself. And the person who made me aware I was being too hard on myself was my new manager, when he was new, I should say, when we hired him some years ago. This is the one I tell you guys who is a really good friend of mine too. He was like, "You're just really hard on yourself. Learn to be okay and comfortable with making mistakes." When I legit made mistakes and I saw that he wasn't very punitive, if not punitive at all, I could feel my growth, and it really turned into a rewarding experience. And then I said, okay, I understand that now, I see the point now, but just because I'm easily forgiven, I don't want to make it acceptable to be shed everywhere I go. Once in a while, tripping is okay. Number 2 is the dreamer. They put things off because they're not good at focusing on the details, and the solution proposed to it is turn your big ideas into smaller, doable steps. Make a to-do list and tick off each little task as you go. I cannot say that I have dreamer tendencies because I like that as soon as I think of something, I make it happen, because whatever I'm thinking about, It is something already within my capacity. So it's not like I'm thinking about how can I make this bigger? How can I make this better? How can I make this greater? How can I make this faster? Whatever I'm thinking about, it just works for me already from the get go because I'm keeping it practical, you could say. The rebel. You resist doing things on a schedule because you don't like being told what to do. And the proposal to fix it is create a schedule that works for you and stick to it. Set your own deadlines and keep things moving. I definitely do not have rebel tendencies either. I am quite the opposite, actually. I like for there to be order. I like for there to be punctuality. When I do not see that being met, I absolutely lose my shit. I have met highly disorganized people. I have met people who cannot make it to appointments on time, to say get togethers on time. They show up whenever they feel like it, they show up whenever they want to. And I said, what is it like to be like that? So I started kind of doing that at work. Let me show up later. And I kind of understand the appeal of not being on time, but I think it's more disrespectful than anything. But if it's for a company, if it's for like something big like that, you're part of a team, then I sincerely don't give a shit. But if it's your personal life, which is the most important thing ever, and you cannot respect other people's personal time, and you know that your presence immediately directly affects genuinely the flow of things because there's no one to replace you, unlike a company, I think that is a problem. And nothing sucked more than me pointing out to someone who has scheduling struggles, like keeping up with being timely and stuff, pointing it out to them and them losing their fucking mind over it. And this is also someone who could have trouble remembering that they needed to get some things done. And I would point out to them that, hey, this could use some work because it's going to bring you the problems that you're complaining about that you're having now. They're going to be exacerbated. And they were like, there is no way that is something that happens to me considering that my bills get paid, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, your bills get paid because you know that you fear the consequences. If you don't, that's going to mess up your credit. You're going to have possibly your ass taken to jail, something extreme like that. You have to be at the risk of a threat, at the risk of a fear for you to come to your senses about this. I don't think you should be like that. I know a rebel in my close circle, and it is just the most infuriating thing ever because all I see is how they're going to suffer some consequences and I point it out to them, but they still don't want to accept it. And once the consequences find them, they're like, I don't understand how problems keep finding me. And I'm like, well, part of your struggles with management of time is the issue. It's a mess. Don't be a rebel. Just don't. The anxious one. You delay tasks because you're scared of change or stepping out of your comfort zone. Start with easy tasks to build confidence. Gradually tackle bigger things as you get more comfortable. The anxious one is something that I could say. That's funny. I've had to cut this segment 2 times because I kept having to move out the way. But anyway, I'm committed to finishing it now. Had this happened some 10 years ago, I would have said I'm a combination of the anxious one and the perfectionist one, but maybe a little bit more the anxious one, only because I feel like at that time I was, I guess you could say, developing my style, determining what I was going to commit to. And I'm a creature of routine, of habit. Once I discover something that works for me, I really don't see the point of changing it because it's hard to convince me to upgrade to something better if I'm already happy with the way things are. Like, I'm not someone who's continuously looking for ways to upgrade from one thing to another or improve something. It's stuff works out, leave it like that. And when it comes to bigger things like life changes. Once I figure out something that works for me, again, I'm fine. Why change it? I feel like life is meant to have a degree of boredom, and you have to be happy with living within that boredom as opposed to living in a perpetual state of chasing things. So for me to step out of my comfort zone, again, you have to convince me. And it says if you start with easy tasks, it'll build confidence, and then gradually you can tackle the bigger things. I think that is actually a reflection of how job trainings are supposed to be, or how school is supposed to be. You're supposed to start off at a low level. Video games, we could compare it to them. The first levels are easy. You're fine, you're okay, you're getting the hang of it. And as your weapons get better, your knowledge get better, your buttons get better, you within the game have more money. As all that happens, then your confidence as a player increases. Your commitment to it, I guess, increases as well. Number 5, we have the crisis maker, and that is you procrastinate because you like the rush of working under pressure. I know someone who matches this 100%. Plan ahead and set mini deadlines to avoid last minute panic. Create a routine that includes time for breaks and planning. And see, what I like about that, I call it scrambling, is that I get to operate under a mental state that I cannot voluntarily just summon. I have to see the crunch in time, the deadline pushing, the pressure of it for it to activate that fight, flight response within me. And what I like about that is that it feels like a superpower. I'm faster. It's like I have willpower where I usually wouldn't under normal circumstances. And as good as that feels, it's not good in the long run because it establishes a pattern of stress. And you may begin to associate that with stress. The only time I create this crisis, in my case, would be in the mornings when I'm getting ready for work. I will snooze 2 times. And by the time I show up to work, I have only been awake by half an hour. And I'm ready to roll, ready to operate, because I had that pressure of getting ready timely enough to where I can show up without being actually tardy. And it's not a good feeling, but sometimes I do this with things that I associate negatively. Years ago, I used to have problems with my taxes because my paychecks were so small and my financial situation was so bad that I, come tax season, would end up owing. And I'm like, what the fuck? I don't have money. How do I owe taxes? How am I gonna pay for this? Needless to say, that was one of the worst feelings in my life. It also sucks that that's how you're starting your life off as. But then when I thought about it, I said, let me go through it, because the more I go through problems, and I went through it with sure, internally I was stressed out, but I had more of a positive mindset than anything. At the end of it, coming out triumphant, I told myself, okay, no matter what, things are gonna get bad, but they'll always get better too. It just depends on how you look at it. But yeah, being the crisis maker, I think those people make themselves unnecessarily suffer. But I also understand the adrenaline and its effects, and how you have capabilities that under normal circumstances you just don't. And then finally, number 6 is the overdoer. You take on too much and then struggle to get started or finish anything. And it suggests that you prioritize your tasks and tackle them one at a time, learn to say no, or delegate tasks to avoid feeling overwhelmed. I know a person who matches the overdoer pretty perfectly, but it's a combination of being the rebel and the overdoer. I think that those two are probably the worst mixes. But the problem with the overdoer is that sometimes they take on too much of one thing, and they become specialized in that one thing, and then when they have to be responsible for other things, they get overwhelmed. But other times, I do know of folks who like to take a little bit of everything, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of everything. And then it just keeps growing and growing and turning into something bigger. And when they do that, they think that because they have more on their plate, that they can just specialize in everything and learn how to handle it all at the same time. But it's impractical, because naturally you won't be good at everything. There's always going to be that one task that you're gonna suck at, and it's going to consume most of your time. Why would you do that to yourself? Why would you let things pile up? I think that prioritizing is not negotiable, but also delegating. I understand as an adult in your personal life that could be a little difficult, especially if you're not surrounded with people who are supportive, because let's face it, unless you have kids and you have authority over your kids and your kids actually respect you, it is hard to have power to delegate things to someone else, because that other adult is probably going to be like, I want to rest, I got things to take care of on my own too. So as an adult, whenever I do have things that I try to delegate, I try to figure out the way to make this as convenient for the person I'm doing the delegating for as possible, so they're more likely to say yes. For instance, the one time I can think about that I may do this on occasion, but probably the most often active version of me delegating is the post office. Anytime I have to go to a post office, I'll have everything sealed, packed, ready, and all I do is consult usually my boyfriend and be like, hey, you get off earlier than me. Are you going to stop by a store that's near the post office? If you are, please drop this off. And it happens to work out. And the other day, his sister happened to come in to the store where we work, and she was talking about she was running some errands and how she wishes she had more things to do when she's at home, but at the same time she's like, well, I'm not trying to go out of my way to overwhelm myself, but I'm also not enjoying feeling kind of useless. And that day I happened to have packages with me that I needed to have dropped off. So when she was done conversing with my boyfriend and I saw that she was on her way out, I caught up to her and I was like, you said you're running errands? Are you horribly busy? Do you think you could spare maybe 10 minutes on a little task? 10 minutes meaning that's about the worst wait time I have at the post office. And sometimes it's a straight shot, especially the earlier in the day you go. Except right after opening, there's always going to be a mini crowd there. But like around noon, 1, it's usually dead. And she was like, sure, what's up? And then I told her what it was, and she was delighted that I was considering her to support me at getting this done. And that's, again, one of those instances when I say you can feel it in your gut when it's a good time to make a move on something. So yeah, you guys, that is pretty much the 6 types of procrastination wheel. And like I said, I feel like I am better defined by the perfectionist one. But I'm proud to say that as an adult, my procrastination is almost non-existent, because I am more confident about myself now, my authority, my pattern, my routine, my resources. And now all I struggled with was that dreadful feeling of, oh man, I gotta get up for work, ugh. Or say, I gotta deal with the car, defrost it when it's cold, or feel the steam of it as I get in it and sweat immediately after taking a shower, things like that. But the good thing is now that I have my routine and I feel like I have perfected it, it just works for me. And now I know when is a good time for what. For instance, my taxes, usually I would leave them for the first week of April. They were done on the last week of March, or the week before the last week of March. And it was good. I mean, I felt just as good as if I had done them in April or early March like I have in previous years. I accept that I won't be good at everything and that sometimes what is an ideal time for me is not going to work out. Speaking of something not working out, I want to work out more in the mornings on my days off, but sometimes I think about, well, I have to plan this around my shower. I don't want to be sweaty all day long because at some point I'm going to want to lie down on my bed as I work on things, as I read things. Therefore, I don't want to do that when I'm filthy, right? But I also don't want to take my shower too early because, for the purposes of my skin, I like to shower only once a day. But I also want to shower closer to bed so that I'm more refreshed for bedtime. Sometimes I may need to take 2 showers in one day, very seldom. And if it comes down to it, then that's what I have to do, if it means me advancing in my fitness goals. But if it can't work out for me, then it doesn't, you know? I used to want to have that stern discipline, very little room for change, but I figured that as things change around me, I may need to change as well. Okay, please let me know your thoughts. Which one do you relate with the most? And I'll see you next time.